to Reaper Pro Tips with me, your host, and disembodied hands, Quindy, Justin, John, and Miss Sassy Tail walking away. Sassy Tail, get your butt up here. Up. Oh, come on, Papa. Yeah, I know, it fell over. Up. There you go. There's my keekers. Sniffing all the stuff. Long face. Looking right at the camera today. Good girl. Yes, it makes your nose look long. Yeah, your nose is not that long, I know. The camera just makes it look long. It's like making your butt look fat. It's true. Yeah, good girl. There's my good girl. Scritches. Yeah, good girl, Keekers. Yeah. All right, baby girl, let's go. Yeah, yes, I know that fell over. I know it gave you a start, didn't it? That's all right. We'll put it in there. It won't fall over again. All right, I'm going to get her a chew and I'll be right back. It's a day. It's a day already. We're just going to try to move through it. Oh, hello everybody. Wow, Splat, long time no see. Or long time no chat anyway. You may have been lurking around. I can't tell when you guys are lurking. But if you haven't been, welcome back. So I'm getting ready to be a Diablo widow. David has been doing nothing but watching Diablo videos recently. Since the new one comes out. For him, he's got early access. It'll come out on June 1st for him. So, it's honestly, like, I could probably play. I don't know if I want to, though. Trying to focus on my rating. Yeah. Hello, green users. Lurky lurk. Lurk. So, yeah, I'm not sure that I want to get into Diablo. Although, you know, I play Overwatch with him every night. So it's not like I would have to play Diablo with him nonstop. He's going to have his own character. I have no idea what that was. Crazy talk, that's what that was. Sorry, keeping an eye on my phone, although I don't have to anymore. My lawn guy finally got back to me with, I'm going to get a tree. We're going to get a tree, guys. Our aging lime tree is dying, and he sent me a picture this morning of a really pretty Japanese maple, and I can't wait. That's our new tree. It's very nice. It's exactly the kind I wanted, so he totally read my mind. like you do, Quindy. So let's get some NMM gold stuff mixed up here. Get our rich leather and stuff, and then if we get that all done, we can get some green stuff and start cut her off her base, figuring out where her feet go on this. And dressing up the rubble that we've already got to make it more standable and to get rid of any like awkward cutoffs like at the edge of these cobblestone bits here. We can blend that in a bit with green. We could use putty too and just fill the spaces. It's less elegant and won't look, as good, but we can. Yeah, and I'm living in Japanese maple land right now, Splat. Although I'm a little concerned because it's a lace leaf maple, which I love, but they do tend to get sun scorch. But it'll be between the lime tree, which is much taller, the lemon tree, which is taller, and the hedges that are well set in and taller. So it'll only get like direct sunlight for a couple hours a day, which actually should be okay for it. It'll mostly get indirect light. I'm hoping. I mean, worst case scenario, the top leaves scorch a bit. Because they're really delicate. Yeah, Bob's kitty litter basing technique. Yeah, I mean, you could do that. You could take some glue and just capillary action it into the crevices and stuff, and then dip it in gravel of your choice. I might use green on this just because, I'm kind of want to make it a little nicer, but I mean, you could have some cutoffs, but I need to make these stones look like they're not just cut off by a side cutter. And I need to probably trim that bit a little bit. But yeah, I just wanted to look a little neater, a little nicer, a little less like I honestly did just cut up pieces of sprue and base and throw them on a base with some cork. So green stuff will let me do that a little bit more regimented, but if you're not a control freak like me, you can just dip it in whatever and you're done. Yeah, I mean, you could still do this kind of thing where you get the nice big clumps of other bases and things and throw them on a base with some super glue, but then you can take the gravel and put it over the top. Yeah, yep, yeah, sand, that's why I said basing. Finer basing material, like flock or sand. As long as you leave the tops of everything open and try to only get your glue in the creases, and it'll look a lot better. But yeah, it'll look rubbly, and that's what we want. We want rubble. Yeah, it depends on the tree, how much water it gets, how vigorous it is, how deep its roots grow. I agree. I agree, Splat. There aren't really a lot of other options that work very well, Kodiak. I mean, Milliput, obviously. Milliput and Aves are putties. They're two-part epoxy putties like green, but they actually, they work more like clay. So for some people, they're more forgiving. I used to use Aves a lot, but then I got good at smoothing green stuff, and smoothing green stuff just feels better to me now. I find I can use a lot less green. Aves, also watch the aging on it, because when Aves gets old, then it doesn't actually function. Like, it won't set. I learned that the hard way. So, yeah, we may get there. We're going to finish up the gold and cut her off her base, Shadow Raven. And I got to finish the eyes as well. Probably glue the wings on, all that stuff. We'll see how far we get today. But yeah, other putty. Putty is really what you want, because any other, like, anything that's more goopy, essentially is just going to make a mess. Yeah, I mean, it's first. I mean, the first time you try it, you aren't going to get it, Kodiak. Like, the best thing you can do, honestly, is just play with it on, like, a base or a piece of plastic card. Just mess with it. Learn how to put a blob down and kind of pat it down and then smooth it in. Like, if you practice and remember to keep your tool wet, then you're going to be okay. But it does take practice. I mean, I used it for conversions, and my conversions were very messy and crappy looking for a while before I got the hang of it. But you're never going to get better at it. It's just like anything in mini painting. You will not get better at it unless you actually do it. And the more you do it, the less intimidated you get, because the more you start to learn how it works. I mean, especially the thing is, like, if you've got only a tiny join that you need to fill, then it's just a little tiny worm of green stuff, and you can just pat it in with one of these silicone tools, like the taper point one that I really like, and it should work just fine. So, I mean, it's just work with it. Just get it, and don't do it on a model that you care a lot about. Just grab something, anything, a piece of cardboard, a piece of plastic card, a base, an extra base, whatever, and then just, like, that's just the way you can mess with it without it being important to you, right? And that's going to relax you, because it won't matter what you do on the piece of card or the piece of cardboard or the piece of base, right? I mean, it's almost good to do it on a base, because then you can make rocks, right? Make a base. And there are, like, several things. And then eventually you can use that base, right? Because if you've got a bunch of lumpy stuff on it, even if you decide you don't like the rocks, like, if you try to do rocks and you're like, oh my gosh, these look terrible, like, all you would do from there is just cover it up with other basing material. Just, like, make a hill. Don't even make rocks. Just make something that you can add stuff to for basing. Oh, you're teaching how to use, Good. Yay, Bob's going to be doing a build base class. Yes, that's the best. And how to use green stuff. Good. So there you go, Kodiak. If you're going to ReaperCon, try to get Bob and Julie's classes, because they're pro. And that's it. Actually brings up another thing. I know. Are you going to ReaperCon, Kodiak? Because if you are, oh, okay, that's too bad. Because I mean, you don't even have to get into a class to make use of ReaperCon. That's the great thing about ReaperCon. You could just go and bring your model that you need help with to Bob and Julie, and they would show you kind of what to do. In person. Like, that's the great thing about ReaperCon. That's why it's so worth it to go. Even if you can't get a full class with somebody, sometimes you don't need a full class. Sometimes you just need to walk up to the person who teaches that class and say, I was going to take your class, I didn't get in, but I just have this one question about purple, right? Or I have this one question about how to do glazing, or I have this one question about eyeballs, you know, or green stuff, or whatever. And it's great if you have an example of your work that you're having trouble with, because then we can answer your question, usually in only 5 or 10 minutes, and then you're good. Like, and you didn't spend any money other than to get into the con. It's just something you get for free. So, yeah, so think about it. Think about it for coming years, because it really is worth it. It really is worth it. If you've got, especially when you're at that level, Kodiak, like you are, where you're trying to get into being more, you know, the intermediate, and you're trying to work your way up, right? That's the time when having access to all of these people and just being able to ask a short question is so worthwhile. Like, a lot of the time, I feel like those just short Q&A session with an artist is just even more valuable than a class in sometimes. It depends on where you are, but sometimes there is really just one thing you need. And so you don't need to sit through. Yes, will you learn more in an hour and a half class? Sure you will. You'll probably walk away with several pieces of information. But when you just really need piece of information, number one, you can get that without getting into a class. Oh yeah, my little rocky base. Yeah, I just need a critter to go on top of it now. Like, I really made it for a wolf or something. But I don't have a critter right now that would fit on it. So, or I do, and I just haven't like looked at my collection. But yeah, some sort of animal, I think. And then I'll probably, you know, do more. But this is my putty catcher, is what we call it, is what Green's artists call it although, you know, real sculptors usually have a putty catcher that's actually a miniature, not just a base full of rocks. But I am not a real sculptor, so there you go. Thanks, Quantum, though. But yeah, so now you also do have access to two, you know, ReaperCon instructors right here. Obviously me and Rhonda, and I don't think Proctor, when he's on, really does a lot of answer questions. I'm not certain. I haven't watched Crow's Nest for a while, but maybe he does. But if he does, then you've got even more resources over online. So use those resources and be very specific. Like, honestly, Kodiak, yeah, I mean, just save up. You've got over a year. You've got time, or 2 years if you decide, maybe 2 years from now. I know you're trying to save money for other stuff too. So it's not a big deal. It's just a really good idea if you're at that stage where you have like lots of questions about everything. That said, for example, Kodiak, when you asked about that, you did not tell me what the project was. So I have no idea in answering your question. I can't really answer your question very well. So this is an example of how to ask a better question. Give me the precise example of what you're trying to do, and I could probably tune my answer to be more helpful to you. Whereas if you just ask a general question like that, I'm like, well, are you putting on a dragon wing? Or are you putting on a, you know, I don't know. There might be different answers depending on what it is, right? So when you ask these questions, you might feel that it might be more useful to ask a general question, but I don't find that that's necessarily true. You may want to actually ask a more specific question. So let's see here. I'm going to put a drop of yellow in my rich leather and a drop of rich leather into my yellow, and then we'll mix a highlight. But yeah, so try to make your questions specific. Try to say, I'm trying to join, you know, X on Y. Because honestly, if you're trying to do something like you are doing a weapon swap, and you're trying to like fix a join between like the sword blade or the sword pommel in the hand that you're trying to put it on, or on a wrist, I would say green stuff every time. I would not say Aves. I would not say Milliput. I would say green stuff. So it really depends what exactly you're trying to do. Whereas if you just have some heat pitting in the rump of a metal horse model, then I'd say Aves every time, because you can smooth it, you can thin it with water and just smooth it with your hand, and you'll be okay. Ah, yep. Drain holes, I would say Aves. Because like I said, it's thinnable with water. It's AVES, Apoxie Sculpt, APOXIE. Milliput works the same way if you get the fine stuff. Aves and Milliput are both thinnable with water. So once you get your glob down, you can just get your finger wet and just start smoothing. However, the gap between the front leg and the shoulder, the thing about... You could use probably Milliput or Aves for the dragon as well. The gap between front leg and shoulder, you could use Aves or green stuff. I would use green stuff there because if you want, if you have to do any texture work, I find texture work is easier with green than with Aves. But that's me. But yeah, so when you ask questions, guys, just saying, make your questions specific. You can give a, hey, I'm looking for a gap filler, and I'm uncomfortable with green stuff, but, you know, I'm wondering what the best tool is, and here are examples of what I want to do. And that helps a lot more, because then we can visualize what you're trying to do. And like I said, as you see, the answer can be different, right? Right. You have a variety of stuff, but it's best if you can focus. Yeah. And I'm going to get some pure white, and then we're going to mix all these guys up. For those who haven't seen my NMM Gold recipe for a while. There we are. We have rich leather with 1 drop, and it's 4 drops of rich leather with 1 drop of lantern yellow. And then we've got lantern yellow with rich leather. Then we have lantern 2 drops with, or 3 drops with 3 drops of white. And then we've got pure white. And then our shadow is going to be a mixture of russet brown and brown liner. Very solidly. Like Milliput is really rock hard, and so is Aves when they set. Green can be scraped off, but I mean you can drill or sand epoxy sculpt or Milliput. But as I said, they're not very good for if you need to sculpt or match texture on the model that you're trying to fill the join on. So if you have to sculpt some scales on a dragon to like go with the cover over the area that you just puttied, then green stuff, I think, is a better tool. Green stuff will, I don't know. I mean, green stuff still bonds pretty well to armatures. It's just that it doesn't set as hard, so you can still carve it off with a knife. You can cut into it. It's more like a hard rubber, I would say. Green stuff is, where the other ones are almost like a soft stone, like. They're just much more brittle and hard. So, and it really depends on, like if you're doing green stuff, like if you're trying to sculpt a green stuff thing onto a model, you definitely want a metal wire or armature underneath so that your green stuff has something to cling to, like, right? Because if you just sculpt something in green and you try to pop it onto you at least need a pin for it to fit on. But the green is more fragile. And for that matter, Aves, if it's thin, or Milliput, if it's thin, can crack. So in any case, no matter what you do, it's not so much how heavily they bond with a figure, because ideally you drill a hole, you put your wire in, and you glue it in with super glue so it bonds really well, and then you're working your green stuff or your Aves, you know, that's worked off of that wire. And usually you do it the other way around, right? You work the green stuff or Aves, you sculpt the bit, and then you drill a hole in your model and you pin it in. So you're not trying to put green stuff onto the model and expecting it to hold by itself. You're actually using a pin or an armature under as the skeleton for the green stuff or the other putty, and then you're pinning that into the model with super glue, which is, you know, gives you a better bond. So that's really what you're kind of doing, Sagebrush. I mean, that said, on busts I've done, like, there's green stuff underneath this lady. Like, I had to do green to fill some mold lines that were awkward. Let me get my camera in focus. And, you know, I'm not worried about, like, the green stuff is just there. Like, it's not going to, like, peel off or rub off or anything. It's just going to act like the underlying resin. So it's like, it's like, are you sculpting something that's protruding from a surface versus are you just using green to fill areas or texture, right? Like, that's the question. If you're just using green to fill an area or to, like, add texture to a surface, it's gonna, like, hold very well. Well, okay, you need to describe what you're doing, Sagebrush, because like I said, it's totally different depending on what application you're trying to do. So what are you asking specifically? Like, give me a fur example. What are you trying to do? And they're not really fillers. They are sculpting putties. Although I guess they're you know, the plumbing putty is definitely at its core use was a filler, but so give me a better for instance, because I can't generalize. I'm not understanding what exactly you're trying to do that okay, so you're trying to do an arm to a body and you've got a significant gap. I would pin the arm to the body and fill that with green or with another putty and smooth it. I probably would use, you could use like one of the other putties at first, but then you're going to want to use green if you're going to like actually do any sculpting. I would just use green. But I mean, when you've got that pin to hold the arm in, and then you do the green, it's not like the green's going to peel off or scrape off, not unless you really sink a fingernail into it and yank it off. Like at the edge, for example. And if it's recessed, if you're doing like, if you're just filling around the arm, I mean, it's not going to be enough on its own. That's why you would pin the arm in with super glue and sculpt, right? Then you've got two adhesives, and one of them is actually an adhesive, super glue. Whereas green is not necessarily meant to be an adhesive, but it works okay as one as long as there's not too much pressure, or it's a thin layer on top of something else. Does that make sense? Like, green is sticky, so it clings to surfaces. It clings to an armature. Nope, Lisana, you can just use paper clips. Be careful, though, about what you use to cut them, because if you are cutting spring steel paper clips, you need an actual wire cutter, not just a side cutter. If you use brass rod, like I do, I just use beading rod, 24 gauge. And that brass rod is soft enough to be cut with just a normal side cutter, a normal hobby side cutter. So you can use spring steel if you want. I mean, just use like paper clips of various sizes, as many people do. Or you can use brass rod, like I do, of particular size to fit your pin vise and your, you know, and your, blurg, I totally lost it. Wire. Yeah, eye protection isn't necessary, especially if you're using spring steel. Yeah, so you've got essentially with a push mold, you've got unsupported green stuff, right? If you cast the thing using green, that is going to be a little bit fragile. I mean, you can still drill into it and put a wire into it and try to and glue it in a bit. Although be careful, because when super glue hits green stuff, they tend to go like kind of goopy. Yeah, you can also do Kuroniko's trick. I just hold it. I honestly just grab my wire and, you know, I'm just holding it kind of in place with one finger, and then I'm cutting with the other hand. It depends on what leverage you can get. But yeah, I mean, I get the bead wire because I prefer to work not with super, man, my camera is just like crooked today. I prefer not to work with spring steel. Like I've had too many cutters get destroyed by it, and I've seen it make normal cutters like shear, and I don't like using a wire cutter, because I find that most of them aren't as fine as I want, whereas a side cutter does do fine you know, work. Like I can get it in there if I'm doing a close cut, but I don't find that I need spring steel, honestly, guys. I mean, if you like using it, then use it, but all right, it's time to put some water into our paint. 1 drop for our base, and 1 drop for that, 2 for anything with white in it, 1 drop for shading. Doing okay today, Roger, doing okay. Yeah. So do our white first, and then we'll just go down the wire. But yeah, I mean, whenever you're doing anything with clippers and knives and crap, eye protection is a good idea. Probably could use a little bit more of my brown in that. Oh, and I forgot to put in my brown liner there. Oh, that is not the brown liner, Anne. You're putting it. Okay. Yeah, we're getting distracted a lot, but that's okay. That's what this stream is about. I'm gonna do 2 drops of brown liner into my russet. Mix that up to be a nice dark brown. There. Hey, crows. Yep. But yeah. So pinning is not like super mysterious, and you don't need special equipment. I also use brass rod because I can find exactly the width that I want for the pin size that I like and own. I'm pretty persnickety about like the size of pin that I use. I pretty much use a very small pin for everything, even dragon wings. These days, when dragon rings are resin and plastic, you certainly don't need the spring steel anymore, in my opinion. Again, if you like it, use it. It's just not necessary. And you don't need necessarily big, heavy pins. You just need something to give you extra purchase. I think I need my white to be a little bigger, a little bit stronger though, so I'm going to pop another drop in there. Yeah, we're finishing up Sophie's weaponry here so that we can take her off her base and put her wings on and finish her eyes and all that kind of thing. Stuff. I am trying to get this model to a point where we can finish it. Uh-oh. Wait. The yard guy wants to talk to me. Okay, good. And yes. There. Just had to reassure my my David that yes, he's going to take the lime tree out. Yes, he's going to plant the maple tree where the lime tree used to be. Alrighty. So yeah, let's get that out of there. So now you guys have seen the colors. I can get it out of there and I can get the Sophie into the spotlight where she belongs. I did do that and that last time, and there's not a lot. And I did the start of this hilt over here last time as well. It does need more highlights though. But yeah, so this be what we doing. Boom. I have annoying things at my elbow. So I had a treat day on Sunday, and we ordered out for Korean fried chicken, which was the first time I had had Korean fried chicken. And I must say, it is definitely not on diet, but it is tasty. It was from a chain called Bonchon, which is the sponsor of our favorite Overwatch League team, so we decided to give it a try for that reason. So I told David that we had to, next time we got it, we had to post to their Twitter and let them know that we only tried it because it was their sponsor. But yeah, pretty tasty. Very odd in ways. It's like chicken wings, kind of. Like you can get wings or you can get wings and drumsticks. Like the drumsticks are big, like chicken drumsticks. And it's like you can get, I think, a sesame soy or a hot, spicy. Or you can get them plain. But it was very crispy and very tasty. It's breaded, that's why it's not on diet. And they have a bunch of cool Korean dishes and noodle dishes, and they had like a kimchi coleslaw, and it was interesting. And then they have fries, but it definitely is like, it's like KFC but with a Korean flair and extra Korean side dishes. It was very interesting. But we will order it again. The chicken was actually very good. It's a very odd. I'm not sure where in America that chain exists outside of where we are. But it was tasty. We have leftovers of it tonight, except that there's only enough leftovers for David, so I'm going to go get mushu from our local, I guess they're a Vietnamese and Chinese fusion place. So I'm just going to get a little bit of light down the middle here where the hilt tends to bulge out where it goes over the, and then to taper into the handle. Or taper into the edges of the hilt. So usually since it bulges out here, it will catch the light. So I joined a Patreon recently. That's a writer's Patreon. She's the one of the co-founders of the Alliance of Independent Authors. And her Patreon is all about the business side of being an indie author. So it's an interesting Patreon. I'm looking forward to it. She divides everything into the 3 hats that you wear. So you're the creator and you're also, or you're a producer and you're a business person and you're a marketer. And she has a lot of workshops and cool things that you can access once you become a patron. Oh, the Sophie. I need to, like, my camera is just like not, I feel like in the right place for me working on it today. There we go. It is a cool model. I mean, it's still available. And it's Bunch USA, so it's not expensive. That was the funny thing. Oh, what was it this morning? I forget which of the painters David follows posted this, but it was another person saying that you can't refer to your shelf of shame as a shelf of shame, or you shouldn't. We call ours the shelf of lost love. We probably should call it purgatory or something. But apparently, this painter calls it their sketchbook. And David is telling me this as he comes out of the shower, and I've just woken up and I'm totally bleary. And he calls it a sketchbook, and all I could think is, the first thing out of my mouth was, wow, every page costs 50 euros. That's expensive paper. Because, when you start an expensive bust and you don't finish it, it kind of gets peters off, and then you put it aside and it costs you 50 euros. That is expensive sketch paper, folks. I don't know if I could bring myself to call it a sketchbook. I think it would make me depressed. Oh, dear. Yes, it can be the shelf of opportunity as well. But, I mean, the big thing is not to put shame on it, right? Like, it shouldn't be ashamed of not finishing stuff. It's taken me so long, guys, to get to the point where I can even try to make my brain, think that way. I felt ashamed of my shelf of shame for so long. I really hated it. I hated not finishing things. But then if I tried to push through them, I would just get blocked. So it's you kind of have to weigh it. And once I realized that, once I was really just making myself hate my hobby and getting blocked and unable to move forward because of the way I felt about not finishing things, then that was kind of freeing at that point. I was just you know what, screw it. If I decide not to work on a figure, I decide not to work on a figure. Platter of progress. Yeah, it's Gold Leaf Skies. Exactly, Grey Wolf, right? Limbo Cupboard. Limbo Cupboard is a good one. I like that one. That's got some style. That's got some style, Kironiko. I approve. Oh, I have a Kironiko. I can show you my knitting project. Hold on. A spam risk is trying to call me. I actually noticed I had a picture of it on my phone. Here, can you go? We're going to go off topic because it's got pretty colors. Here, where's my pretty colors? All photos. There we go. So I'm knitting a cowl. And it's growing. It's growing. I really like it because it's variegated yarn, so it's color shifting yarn. So, you know, it isn't always the same. And the first ball of yarn I had this really more pale tealy color. There we go. And then it shifted into these darker and more vibrant colors. So it's a really pretty yarn. There's the tail end. I just finished my first yarn ball. But yeah, so that's a cowl. So it'll wrap around my neck and double it up. So I'm trying to get wider. I want it 15 inches. But anyway, so there's a little knitting geekery. Oh, and as you can tell, I'm seed stitching it. So you can see my little seed stitches alternating. So I only screwed it up a little bit. Oh, and then I wanted to show you guys this one. Just because, like, color themes, I always say, go look at stuff around you. But look at this awesome rose. Like, you could do an orange, a dark orange with a white, with the magenta and the yellow. Like, this would make a very interesting color scheme. You'd have to throw some darks into it. You can see the rose there before it opens actually has much darker, more vibrant color. And then as it opens, it starts to fade out. Yeah, I had to work on my yarn tension a lot, Kerniko. But yeah, so I do that a lot. I take a lot of pictures of flowers because around here I find I can find some really cool examples to base color schemes on. So I get excited every once in a while about that. Color is my superpower, Sagebrush. Color is what makes me happy. David looks at a model or a painting and he cares, and if it's got beautiful lighting, he's all about the light. I look at a painting, all I care about is color, at least at first glance. Then I start to appreciate other stuff. But I really am, and as I've been with David, I get a greater appreciation of lighting in a piece. But color is really what lights me up on the inside. Like, color is really where it's at for me. Oh, nice, Richard. Yeah, I don't like thinking of it as backlog. But then, yeah. Yeah, because then you start thinking of it as a job. Like, you just got to watch out not to get blocked. Like, whatever you have to call your collection of minis that you started but haven't finished yet, or your closet full of unpainted minis. Like, I have to directly remove things like that from my purview. Like, I need to put everything away out of my sight, or I start to get depressed about it. And probably part of that is the fact that I've done this for a living, you know, and still do the hobby for a living, obviously. So for me, it's very closely mentally associated with work, and I have to watch that or I can feel overwhelmed. So a lot of this is figuring out your own brain, like what your hangups are about mini painting and about finishing things, and, you know, trying to kind of switch your mindset. It's like when I wake up and I kind of feel like kind of mopey or whatever, I try to like figure out why I'm feeling mopey and reframe it. Because I don't want to be in kind of a down mood all day without knowing why. And once I know why, I can usually make myself feel better. There we go. So we've got that hilt coming up. Yep. Yeah, that's a fear response, right, Kerniko? Because you don't want to be disappointed. You don't want to finish it and see that it's not up to what you wanted. And that kind of thinking you have to tackle from the top down, right? You have to reframe your whole hobby as not results focused, which is so hard in our current society because everything is results focused. Nobody cares unless you have a result. Nobody cares unless it's finished. Like, it's just something that our current culture like values more than the journey. When lately I have been fighting to try to reframe to get away from that, because I also can run into that sometimes, Kroniko. Not so much the, like, I don't know what it is. It's just this ennui, this, like, boredom. I get bored toward the end of a figure, I think, is if it takes too long. And it almost always takes too long because I don't have a lot of time to paint for myself these days. So, weirdly, sometimes I feel like I have to move fast. So yeah, I think we can reframe that no matter what makes you stop. But it has to be kind of like, I'm trying to make myself enjoy the journey. Like I've very much been focusing on like how I feel about the piece as I start working on it. And trying to tell myself, no, just relax here. Just relax. Like, just enjoy this. Like, you're painting. Yay, enjoy it. Right? And to kind of repeat that at myself until I actually do it. And to tell myself, it doesn't matter what it looks like when it's done. It doesn't matter. Especially with my Golden Demon piece. I'm painting the model because I think it's cool, right? And with competition painting especially, it's really hard to keep sight of that sometimes. You always are thinking about how other people will judge it because it's a competition piece. But I think the most effective way is just to try to enjoy painting it because it's a cool model. And you know what? If it's not like a cool model that other people appreciate when it's done, who cares as long as you had fun with it and you like it. And I think really getting around to that point, you know, and finding something to like even if you're disappointed in some things on the figure, finding things that you do like about it, I think is important. Oh yeah, right. Yeah, that's maybe where that comes from. The fact that you paint so much for other people. Right? You paint a lot for your game or for board games. And so, and if I may say so, you have a really judgy group. So judgy. Like, at some point I would just look at those people and say, you know, screw y'all. I don't care. I like it. Bye. Like, do it yourself if you think it's so awful. Oh, people. But it's hard in the moment, right? They're your friends. You want them to be like ooh ah, you know. But the more people see your painting, the more they're less ooh ah. Like they're ooh ah when they first meet you. They're ooh ah every time you really punch it up. But when you're just trying to get something done for them, they're just like, oh meh. They'll judge you. Even after we did out the bad ones. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not there, Quantum. It's going to be a little while, I think, before I'm going to be there. Because I still have to paint examples for the Patreon sometimes. I've got a nice log of models, you know, that I've done a lot of different things on, so I try to use those, but I still have to paint examples sometimes. I've tried to go further away from doing that because I can't paint a whole model for a PDF. It just won't work. But still my living is tied up in mini painting in the hobby. And so, you know, and in here, obviously I'm working, right? I get to pick what models I paint on, which helps a lot, but it's still work. And some days after I've done this, I just don't want to go and paint more at night. I want to just, you know, click heads in Overwatch or kill tiny digital monsters in Diablo or Path of Exile or whatever we're killing tiny digital monsters in, right? So yeah, it's a struggle. It's a struggle. I mean, it's a never-ending struggle when you work in the industry to keep your head clear so that you can still love the hobby. Like, I do it a lot. I'm a lot more effective at it now than I used to be. I spent many, many years just burned out, just terribly burned out. Yeah, I mean, when you just paint for yourself, yeah, if the quality drops, you can still feel the silent judgment. Yep, I get it. Yep. It is, too. It's just like I said, when they first see your painting, everybody's wowed. Same thing happened to me at Reaper. Like, at first everybody was all like, wow. And then, you know, after a while it was just like, oh yeah, it's another Anne Mini. And then it was, you know, oh, it seems like you phoned this one in. And I was like, excuse me? So yeah, it is what it is. But it's just it's the root of the old saw, familiarity breeds contempt, right? That's where it comes from. So we're giving that white line around the edges here, guys. But yeah, it is important to just like paint for yourself on some level, like to learn to just enjoy putting paint on the Mini. Because whenever we get caught up in thinking about what other people are going to think about it, that changes what we choose to do sometimes on the model. And sometimes it means that we don't enjoy it as much. That's why I stopped, I stopped painting some things on my stream. Because when I painted the Halfling Assassin on my stream, it actually made me do more work on it than I originally planned to do, because I felt like I had to paint up because I was painting in front of you guys, or in front of people. And I ended up not enjoying that model. So now I'm rethinking what I try to paint on my own personal stream. Like if there's a model that's a competition model, or a something like that, if there's something actually that I'm just trying to paint for myself that I'm enjoying, then I'm probably not going to paint it on stream, because it does expose you to that. Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? And sometimes it's a good idea. It's just that you just don't want to do it. And it takes strength to say no. Yeah, exactly, Kerniko, exactly. There was only one instance of that at Reaper. Only one. It was very upsetting, however. I think it was shortly after that I was very thankful that the paint department commanded my attention full time, and they could get themselves a different staff painter or painters. But yeah, that was years ago though. But it happens, right? It happens. The phoned in thing, the judging thing. That, oh, that's not as good as your last one. I liked, or here's the comment: I liked your last one better. That's a toxic comment. In other words, this one sucks, right? Although the rejoinder, you know, should be, oh, I like this one. I like this one actually better than the last one. And I am very, very much in the mindset, you know, now, these days, of the, oh, well, you should just paint that then. When somebody decides, you know, that I should be painting something a different way. Paint one yourself. You can do whatever you would like on the model. Of course, sometimes I do ask you guys for feedback, just usually if I'm feeling like I'm not very... if I'm not super inspired, or if I'm like just ambivalent, then I love to have you guys feedback, because that helps me make a decision. Paint job is great, but the Mini is rubbish. Oh, lordy. Yeah, but it took a long time to get to that point, Sagebrush, where I could say, I'm just going to do it. And if you don't like it, go paint one yourself. Yep. Social pressure, it's a thing. But it takes a long time. I mean, now I'm old and crotchety, and people can just go bite themselves, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, Tyler. I had to fight for it, though, Tyler. I was so wishy-washy when I was younger. Oh, my gosh. No one tries to sell you dolphins because they know you would bite, Kernika. Or you would go and liberate the dolphins. I would be tempted to go find where they are and liberate the dolphins, personally. But yeah, people can be very toxic without like really meaning to be. Like, they don't understand what it does to your brain when they get that whole, oh, I liked your other one better, you know. It's that fine line between, like, you know, if you don't have something nice to say, don't say anything at all, which I don't necessarily agree with, except that sometimes it is true. Like, if somebody is noticeably proud of a thing, then you should let them be proud of that thing. And you should only, like, you know, contribute criticism if they ask for it. And sometimes people will ask for criticism, but you can kind of tell they don't really want it. Like, they ask for criticism fully expecting to get the whole, oh my gosh, this is so brilliant, I can't even critique it, right? And, so usually I'm cautious with people. If I don't know them, I'll ask them what level of critique they want. If they want me to go hardcore, if they want me to go gentle. And I'll kind of pay attention to, like, the way that they're acting about the model, right? Are they obviously proud of it? Are they afraid of what you're going to say? And I'll couch it a little bit more gently. These days it's more, well, I feel like you did this really, really well. If I gave you one thing to maybe consider improving on, it would be X. But overall, I think this is done, you know, this is good here, you know, or that is good. I try to do the sandwich. And you can usually tell after that if they're going to take your criticism, right? If they really just wanted you to say, that's great. Well, that can be challenging, Sagebrush. Like, some people get really defensive if you ask that question. So be careful. And that's why learning to read people and kind of read how they're acting when they come to you and ask you, you know, what do you think, can be really helpful. Because if somebody doesn't have a lot of confidence, asking them why they made that choice is going to make them feel really flustered and insecure and really not give them a good feeling. I've learned that over the years. So it really is like, it depends on the person. It really depends on the person. There are some people I would never ask that. But a lot of people can take it. I speak as somebody who, like, can defend my choices now, but I still don't like to be asked, why did you make that choice? Like, as part of a critique. Because when they ask that, that means they don't like it. So yeah, that's a hard one. That's a question where I'm like, well, sometimes. Yeah. Right. Yeah, you can still be positive, right? And that's why usually I'm more like, if you tried one new thing that might make it better, you could try X. And usually it's a technique. You know, like often with beginning painters, it's lining. If they're not sure on their shading, then lining is an easy way to just add some contrast. But yeah, some people will just kind of shrug and not want to take any advice. So yeah, see, for me, and it's because everyone is so different, right? Sagebrush, because we all have different personalities and we've got different hangups, we've got different histories, we've got different whatever, right? For me, that question, like in the old days before I became a belligerent old woman, in the old days, getting challenged, that would have been like a challenge to me. It would instantly have made me feel insecure. So yeah, it really depends on who you're dealing with. Um, I would be more likely to ask them kind of to get like understand what kind of ground I'm on. I would ask them, so why did you choose this model? It's really cool. What do you really like about it? Right? That kind of thing. Like, what do you think you're doing well? And then I can say, oh yeah, okay, I can see it, right? But yeah, it's really difficult. Like changing your critique style to suit the person that you're critiquing is an art form. Like, so we're almost there, everybody. We're almost there. We've got all this shiny gold coming out now. Oh, wow. Yeah. That's somebody who just is like everything is through them, right, Quindy? That person. Like everything is about them. I know somebody like that, like where you can just watch their wheels turning and kind of know that they're just waiting. Like they're not really listening to you, they're just waiting to interject their reply. And like it's somebody who loves to tell stories that make themselves look interesting. And so like everybody they meet, like if you are like really cool or famous or good at something, you just get co-opted to make that person like look better. So it's sad, but there are people like that in the world. And most of the time it's just the way they roll. And, you know, it's worked for them so far. But I feel sad because it's hard to have a relationship with a person like that. Oh, you know, but there's poor social skills, Richard, and there's poor social skills. I think most of us are just fine. Like, I don't consider me being defensive, like, when I was younger, when people asked me why I made a decision, to be poor social skills because I was a nerd. I would consider it, like, more because I'd been criticized a lot and always been kind of a vulnerable, like, person in my, like, I was always made fun of in school. I was never the popular kid, right? Not because I was a nerd, just because, you know, I was kind of the fat girl when I was younger, and, you know, I was a little bit shy when I was younger and stuff like that. Like, you don't have to be a nerd. And I feel like poor social skills is I get what you're saying, but it's very generalistic, right? It's a very generalized term. I think we're all a little bit wonky in our social skills in different ways, no matter who we are. Yeah, main character syndrome. That's a good way to put it. That's a good way to put it. Yeah, the type of person whose favorite subject is themselves and they don't stop talking about themselves or their experiences, right? Main character syndrome sounds perfect. Like essentially that you're the hero of the world. Like in your story, you are the main character and everybody else is just tertiary. And those people just have a hard problem like relating to other people on an equal level, Sagebrush, because they don't think other people are as interesting as they are. And it might only be a subconscious thing. And that's where it's dangerous. Yeah, everyone else is tertiary. Exactly what I just said, Kerniko. Woo! Yeah, Quindy. No, I totally feel you. Like, that would be a weird one. But, like, they wanted validation, and they didn't really care about what you got. They just wanted to talk about what they got and why it was so cool. Right. Yeah, main character syndrome. But yeah, we all try to, I mean, I think we all have social hiccups. Those of us who don't have social hiccups have worked very hard on ourselves to make sure we don't have social hiccups. Or that we have fewer of them, right? Yeah, that's true. It was a little too much. But that's, yeah, it's just, it can be a lack of empathy. It can be like just that they were so excited that it overwhelmed them about other people's like stuff. I agree, Inara. Yeah, Valandar, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, and that's something where, like I said, you learn it as you get older. Like if you have an interest in like, in being more relatable. Like if you realize suddenly that you're kind of like just talking over other people's accomplishments with your own, uh, but it takes a certain level of self awareness, I think, to turn that around and realize, oh, I should appreciate their accomplishment too. And sometimes people just do get overexcited. It's true. And it is like best to kind of assume the best probably if you, unless you've also had a bad experience with that person in general. Like just think, oh my god, she's so excited, and that's cool. Um, but it is, yeah, it can be a downer. All right, and to touch up the ear there, and I think we've got our gold. Yeah, yeah, yeah. When you don't care so much about what people think of you. Oh, I missed that little hilt poking out. Gotta get it. Yeah, nerds are, and then we're back to the general nerds aren't really known for. But I find that we're different. Like just saying that nerds are bad at social skills. Like I was bad at social skills, and I was, I guess, a bit of a nerd. But most of my bad at social skills was drawn from other things. Like I said, not the fact that I liked D&D. I guess you could say that people with fewer social skills might be drawn to nerdy things, but these days nerdy things are what everybody does. I don't know. And I feel like we've bucked that a little bit, like because everybody does it nowadays, because everyone does nerdy things, because even the jocks are watching Critical Role, you know, it makes it harder to like make that generalization these days. Oh, and I forgot the little gold doodad there, so we've got to get that too. Yeah, social cues. Hey there, Tristoma. Oh, that's clever, Pendrake. Are you sure? Oh, yeah. Oh, no. Oh, no. That's pretty evil, Pendrake. Pretty evil. Appreciated. But yeah, when it comes down to it, like, just try to do your best to, like, give the other person some benefit of the doubt. But if they're really being a jerk, or they're really, like, you know, like, impacting your emotional state negatively, like, you have the right to just, like, excuse yourself from the conversation, Quindy. Just like you did. Just, like, I mean, it helps if you, like, understand that not everybody lives like that in the world. Just because one person had that problem doesn't mean everybody's going to dismiss your painting. Especially if you got a gold. That's pretty cool. It is not easy to get a gold at ReaperCon. Try bird watchers. This hobby gatekeeping. Oh, it's too bad. Oh, social anxiety. Yeah, that's a problem. I'm sorry, Quindy. Sorry it hit you that way then. Hold on, I gotta catch up. You guys are babbling. There are other hobbies that gatekeep badly too. Yeah, that's okay, Quindy. I get it. Like, I would feel pretty hurt. Hey, I'm a D&D playing girl, Richard. Yes, there we go. Right. Yeah, that's good, Shadow Raven. At least you got rain. Ah. Got a little bit of gold in here that I need to hit. And now we'll do that little tiny bauble at her underneath the coif. So it's all little round things and they're tiny. So we're just going to start with our light color. And we're going to try to hit those little bits. There isn't much room, so you just want to hit a little highlight on them. And the big one is the most important one. Yeah, people and their judges. And I'm going to try to make this a rounder highlight. I can leave more room to show that it's gold here. I don't want to overwhelm the gold color. I'm mostly going to save my bright highlight for the centerpiece. Which is also why I kept the centerpiece in gold instead of making it a gem. Is then that color being alike to these colors helps keep the look of the whole thing being gold. But yeah, I just feel bad for people with main character thing going on, just because it can be hard for them to build good relationships, and I think that can be a very difficult thing to wrestle with as you get older. So I try to have some empathy, at least intellectual empathy. God knows I've got no real empathy. As we've discussed with the Clifton strengths, I have no real empathy, but I have intellectual empathy. So I can actually look at somebody and go, okay, I feel for that person. Like, it can be hard to be that. So I try to be patient. I think our rain is done. We've still got clouds for the next couple days. There we go. So we've got some highlights now on that gold part. It stands out a little better. If I really want to go yellow with it, I can put a little bit of a glaze of my yellow, more yellow color over it. Then pop in with a highlight in pure white. No, this is actually me hand mixing Quantum. So it comes out about the same way, but I use mixtures of lantern yellow and rich leather. So this is four rich leather, 1 lantern yellow. This is 4 lantern yellow, 1 rich leather. This is 3 lantern yellow plus white. So this is actually not as complex as our NMM gold highlight. Our NMM gold highlight actually has 3 different kinds of yellow pigment in it. And then there's the pure white, and then my shadow goes down to a russet brown and brown liner mix. Oh, yeah. Yeah, Korniko, yeah, for sure. And it's just a bummer. I don't know. I mean, again, I guess like the way that especially workplace environments tend to be these days, it's like encouraged, right? Everybody's trying to get ahead. Everybody's trying to be better than the other person. But it doesn't make for good team players. There we go. Yep. And that just goes to show you that it doesn't matter if a color isn't exact match. You can still use it in the same way. This is why Rhonda, and she's absolutely right, tells you not to overthink it when you're trying to, like when you're thinking about matching and mixing colors and then matching them again. It doesn't matter if you have a precise match. You just have to get close. Just putting a little bit more liner in there. Okay, now eyeballs. And use my dark brown. Actually, I'm gonna use my walnut. Get some walnut out for her eyes. Sophie actually has like golden hazel eyes, but at this scale, you really can't do that. I could do it at the 72 millimeter. If we ever get a Sophie bust, we'll be able to do it. But colored irises, I never think look good in 28. So you have to usually make the eyes look really oversized to get the color to read. I've done it before, but I just don't like the look of it. Whew. But yeah, speaking of like getting bored and needing to power through a model, I really need to get Anubis his base done. So maybe I think I'm here this Saturday, so I'll stream this Saturday. I'll probably work on a combo of Anubis's basing and the chronoscope figure that I was working on last week, which is a Reaper, so I can show it. This lady. So we were working on the white lace, and I'll finish up the white lace on her and probably start working on the black. And we'll work on Anubis's basing this Saturday on my stream. Okay, so the thing with, the reason I use walnut is that I can thin it enough for it to come off the brush in a tiny dot, but it's got such high coverage that it's still got good opacity. Oh yeah, centipedes are like pretty nasty. It's a chronoscope figure. I can't remember her name. Somebody brought it up. She's very British sounding. It's one of those 50 something numbers. I think so because I didn't touch anything, Pendrake. Can't remember her last name. She's very British sounding. The lady in the ball gown. Not Catherine. Yeah, I don't remember. Coraline, that's right. It's Coraline. I think it's spelled just like the Neil Gaiman book, so Coraline. But I'm trying to get that done for Andy Pieper for ReaperCon. So it makes sense to work on it on my stream. I could actually work on it on this stream. Yeah, I guess I could do it on this stream. I mean, it's Reaper and it's 28. I'm going to do the parquet floor on it. Which is why it's on a big base. Well, she also has that big train, so she has to be on a bigger base. Quindy found it. Yep. So yeah, so maybe I'll work on her on this stream or maybe I won't. I haven't decided. It depends on if I really start wanting to work on something else on my other stream. So I do need to get it done by ReaperCon, so I may end up subbing that in at some point. All right, let's do eyeballs. I've already got them. I filled them in walnut or brown liner. I colored them over with an off-white. Now we need to put pupils in it. She's definitely looking off to the side, so I can make her pupils more on this side of the face, which helps with tiny, tiny eyeballs. So go up from the bottom, use the upper lid to stop your brush, and always paint on the exhale. If you're going to hold your breath, hold it at the end of a breath, not at the beginning of a breath. If you hold your breath at the beginning of a breath, you're going to be tensed up and more likely to shake. And then you get eyeballs. Neil did invent it. He talks about it. He talks about it in Make Good Art, his commencement speech for one of the colleges that he commencement speeched at. He talks about it because he accidentally misspelled Carolyn. And then he thought, Coraline, that's a really cool name. And then he used it. So he did make it up, but now I'm sure people are actually named it. Because, you know, Arya. Sansa. There are lots of Aryas. Arya peaked in popularity during Game of Thrones. A baby's named Arya. So yeah, so that's the key though, is having your paint at the right consistency. Oh, where's my black base? Need it to cover up some of this white. There we go. If I pull my brush through, see how it's closing up? Like it's just that watery. Like it's not, if you pull your brush through the paint and you still see that furrow and it takes a while to close up and level out, your paint is too thick for this. You need it thin enough that you can pull your brush through it and it'll self-close, and thick enough that when you do a tiny dot on your palette or on your thumb or whatever, it's like that. It's very, very dark. If you can do tiny dark dots like those, then you can do it. Yeah, I'm a Neil Gaiman fan, so I know a lot of the trivia about Neil, Richard. Alrighty, I think we're good. Oh, you know what I totally forgot to do? I totally forgot to highlight those little steel, those little steel circles on the side of her. See them right there? Madison got to be a very popular name. It's interesting, the dynamics of naming and what gets popular and what doesn't is a very interesting curve. It actually follows the same power law curve that like popularity in music and the arts does, where it's a winner take all, where the most popular name is usually exponentially ahead of the next popular name, and then it goes down in a curve. But sometimes like popular culture things can influence it, like with Arya, which yes is an existing name, but it exploded in popularity compared to previously during Game of Thrones. So I'm going to highlight these little guys just to get them bright. But is Neverwhere in there? Because Neverwhere is awesome, Richard Bennett. American Gods is too heavy and I wouldn't recommend it, but Neverwhere is a really good book. And Stardust. Neverwhere and Stardust. Yeah, but you know what? It is what it is. As far as the Khaleesi thing. I think that Neverwhere feels a lot like Sandman. TV series was supposed to be okay. I think Neil was involved in producing it. The book is really good. If you like that Sandman feel, I feel like Neverwhere is, because that's why, I mean, it's my favorite Neil Gaiman book. And I also started with Sandman. Sandman helped preserve my sanity in college. Good Omens is great, but it's not my favorite. I enjoy it, but Yeah, I remember John Constantine. He was a bit... I didn't get into that one as much. Because Neil was much more mythology, like... It had that fairy tale feel sometimes, and that's obviously, considering what I write, that's what I'm into, so... All right, there we go. So we got those highlighted. Great. Yay. Yeah, I actually haven't watched it, and I know Neil's involved with that one. Let me see. Where's my wings? Sophie says. Oh, wait, Sophie, we've got to cut you off your base. Or maybe we should put the wings on and then cut you off. Come here, wings. Oh, and we're almost at the end of the stream. So maybe we will put the wings on, and then we will either cut her off her base or we'll hold the base till next time. And we'll finish the basing on her next time. Oh, yeah, there's some pretty intense Sandman, Tyler. It's better if you start from the beginning with Sandman. Like, it really is kind of written that way. He eases you in then. Because there's some really dark stuff in there. Really dark. And it will spook you right out. But if you want to try Neil Gaiman, but you don't want to be scared, you don't want to be totally spooked out, read Stardust. Or I guess Neverwhere. Neverwhere has some little spooky bits in it, but it's not nearly as bad as that. Oh, he's a fantasy urban. I would almost call him urban fantasy, but I mean some of his stuff is very fantasy, like Stardust. Most of Neil's stuff is something you'd call urban fantasy or imaginative realism or something. But I'd call him a fantasy writer, Pendrick. Yeah, that's why I don't read a lot of his short stories, because he tends to get real dark in those. Plus, I'm not a short fiction reader. All right, so where's my glue? Now, these wings will snap in, but we are going to actually glue them in. I'm going to just kind of check my fit here. This is the one that gives me trouble all the time. Papa, just settle. Okay, so I've got to go really flat. Got to go really flat against it. And then the other one I think is going to be, all right, better. Yeah, I figured that Lucifer wasn't, I looked up Lucifer, but saw that it didn't look like it was all like the source stuff. Uh-oh, I have clogged glue snozzle. But yeah, I mean, it's not for everybody, for sure. No book is for everybody. Ah! But yeah, the reason I like Neil is because I like fairy tale stuff, and his stuff has that kind of mythology fairy tale thing going on. Which makes me happy. Yes, Papa, I'm almost done. And we'll have to do some touch-ups probably. So I'm going to paint the snozzle here, and I'm going to try to get the glue out just in a little tiny bit. There we go. And we'll get this particular wing, and we will remember that we need to keep it really flat. And really flat. There it is. Goes right up in. Only when you get this wing really flat to her do you get the fit. I'm going to have to hold it, so pardon me, guys. There we go. There's one wing. And then the other wing is the snap-in wing, as I recall. I can actually get it to snap in. Yep, but I'm going to glue it anyway. But the fact that it snaps in easily and nicely means that its gluing will be easier. Wow. Sorry about that, Valendar. But yeah, having that model's name be the same as the Neil Gaiman book makes it easy for me to remember now. Alrighty, There we go. We've got a little tiny bead of glue showing, so I'll touch it up. I also need to touch up a little bit here and there on these wings. As you can see, that shiny rub off part. It's not quite rubbed off, but it's getting there right up there. But there's the wings from the back. So our texturing is showing up really nicely. And then we've got the wings from the front, which brings a lot more of that skin tone in, which really helps balance it around the top of the model. So our Sophie is constructed. I do need to still get the bone up on her little claws, though. I just noticed that. That's fine. That little of a thing is not difficult to do when the wings are attached. So there. So that's what we look like, guys. Thank you, Kariniko. Yeah, I think I don't have a lot of touch-up to do. Just the back of the wing there and those little claws, and she looks good. And I'll need, next time, once this glue is firmly set, I will be able to cut her off her base. Yeah, at this point, I'm good enough with my control quantum. I trust myself. There are, with plastic glue, styrene glue, I will often do the pin thing, assuming that it's got, it doesn't have a fine tip applicator that's fine enough. I will do a pin or a knife tip transfer at that point, because it'll just melt the styrene otherwise. But with super glue, usually I've got fine enough control. So there are times, if it's a tiny piece, then I'll put a little bit of super glue onto my ceramic palette, because I can just wipe it off afterwards, and I'll just take a pin and do it that way. So yeah. But here, I mean, on these, that was wide enough that I was able to do it. And you know what? If I get a little bit of glue seepage, I'm just going to touch it up anyway, because I've still got to touch up the back of the wing. So it's not a big deal to me. Like, I'm not afraid to messy super glue at times. And I just touch it up. But yeah, so there we go, guys. We have ourselves an intact Sophie. We just need to get her over and get her base properly fitted for her. And I will like this a lot better with some grass tufts poking out of it and some fill-in details and stuff. So yeah, there we go. And it's about time. Yeah, and that's fair. If you don't have really good control of your super glue, then by all means use a pin or a knife tip or whatever pokey tool tip, and transfer it that way. It's fine. I like these long nozzles on the Zap-A-Gap because I find them very easy to use. So, but yeah, there we go. Yay! Tomorrow we are back on to our Corindra, speaking of models that begin with C. We got that white and the blue, and this is looking nice, and the white up there is looking nice. I think that this is overall coming along. That's really good, Kerniko. So yeah, I feel like I want to, yeah, she's okay. And her white looks good. I could probably put a little bit of a heavier coat on that white. So yeah. We'll be working on Corindra tomorrow, and I'll have to figure out what I want to work on. There's a lot of, like, we haven't addressed the fact that the chainmail needs to be metallic, and that's going to be very hard to make it be really tight. We'll have to go over it with some real paint. Maybe we'll work on our metallics tomorrow. Or maybe I'll block in leather, and then we'll work on some metallics, because I still need to address that. I'll probably make her pants black or dark. I could go white with them. It's just dangerous to pull the white too far down. So yeah, we'll talk about that. Onto a mini cupcake liner. Yeah, that makes sense. It's a good tactic. Alrighty, folks. Thank you so much for showing up. We will be back tomorrow. Oh, and I have a yawn attack. Obviously, I need to go out and get some exercise. Play with a papa. Thanks for coming. I hope you enjoyed our Sophie almost finishing step. And I'll have to figure out what I'm going to paint next on her, or what model comes up next. Because, like, we're getting to the end. If I don't like replace her fast enough, I'll have to work on Coraline. Yep. Thank you, everybody. Have a lovely Tuesday, and I'll see you again tomorrow. Bye-bye.